I watched the movie this morning, and I thought it was fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah, I literally
Glad you enjoyed it.
about 6 a.m. I put it on. So
Oh, great.
I'm a morning film watcher. I like watching movies really, really early in the movie. It's when I'm at my most kind of like into it, I find.
Okay, have you slept beforehand?
Oh yeah, I'd slept. Yeah. Oh no, I've got a puppy at the moment who keeps waking us up at about 6 a.m. So I'm using it to my advantage and actually getting some work done early on.
Okay. Does the puppy watch films with you?
She likes The Simpsons. She seems to, every time I put The Simpsons on, she seems to stop and just kind of pay slight attention. So I think she likes the colours.
Yeah. I always wondered, they have these theories of whether animals can watch television, and it's like, I would love to know what they're actually seeing.
Yeah, because I always wonder if I've ever tried to like FaceTime a dog, which I have actually tried to do in the past. They never seem to recognise my voice, and I wonder if there's some sort of distortion or something that comes with it.
Oh, really? Okay. Gosh, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I've done the same.
Yeah. Well, thanks for speaking to me today. I know obviously you're so busy, but I'm going to begin just by speaking about the character in Cordelia, which is such a nuanced, multifaceted kind of leading role. It must have been a great character for you to get your teeth stuck into.
Yeah, it was. I mean, because the obvious thing, firstly, as an actor on the page, was the fact that I'm playing twins. But what I specifically tried to do was, firstly, in terms of tackling the twins, I looked at lots of twins who I knew of. And when you saw, like, if there were ever any interviews with them side by side, you actually have to look at their similarities rather than their differences. And that's the key component of these two sisters, is their core similarities, and because I'm playing them both. And then I wanted to make Cordelia seem as though she is a part of Caroline. So Cordelia's journey obviously is throughout the film, but it's having her sort of metamorphosize from what Cordelia presents to the world, which is kind of like this much more reduced version of herself, and then her sort of opening up like a flower or demon, as it may be.
What was it? Because I know obviously you've got a writing credit on this. I just wondered about you and Adrian, how you sort of worked together on this. Were you working together right from the genesis of the project? How did it come to be that you two started this collaboration?
So I met Adrian on a television show called My Mother and Other Strangers that he was directing, and he cast me in. And so that was very nice, sort of lovely period piece. And I did my thing and worked away. And I guess he was sort of watching me and came up with the notion that I would be a suitable candidate for Cordelia. And as we got to know each other, he began to learn that I had always been writing. I had writing projects in development, films for many years. And so he sort of thought about this, I guess. And the end of filming that TV series, he asked if we could meet, and he presented this project Cordelia that he had been working on for quite a few years, I think maybe 8-9 years, and developing along with somebody else. And and as projects change and develop and time passes, it sort of came into my hands. And so because again all that time had passed, and he is very collaborative, and he's very much an actor's director, he said, if I was interested in playing this role, and I'm also a writer, would I be interested in going away and doing a pass on it to sort of infuse my voice and the female voice into his male writing, I suppose. And also the joining of dynamics, which is like, it's generational, I suppose. Adrian is obviously older than me, and his inspirations come from 70s cinema, and he liked the fact that I've been doing lots of European cinema, so he wanted that sort of infusion.
Yeah, it's so refreshing to hear that of a writer, and a male writer, seeking to collaborate with a female voice on a female character rather than just try and completely tackle it of his own accord. So that must have been great to have that input into this role. And did you find, when sort of crafting the character of Cordelia, that you were able to make her even more kind of layered than characters you've read before, because you were aware of the challenges you could set yourself as an actress?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we spent a long time talking about her and why she is in this position. I mean, I suppose the reason it was important to make her very textured and nuanced, I suppose, is because really it happens over a weekend, and when an audience is with the character for just a few days and you are in the confines basically of a space, which is an apartment, I think it's all those, it's almost like a kaleidoscope of things that happen with her. And I thought that was very important because it's almost like she's wearing her psyche on the outside, that we should be able to see every movement. And what interested me about her as a character, and it's slightly different now because of the times that we're in, but I've always been fascinated by the human mind and what can happen in a very short space of time. We can basically be reprogrammed by another individual within a matter of weeks. And I think people can, if you reduce the external input, like if someone is isolated or, that's why I asked you if you stayed up all night. If people have lack of sleep, their ability to process what's happening around them is altered. And that's exactly what's happening with Cordelia.
Yeah, because I was wondering about working with Jonny too, because I was lucky enough just before lockdown, I interviewed him a couple of times for Emma, the film that came out earlier this year, and he was just such a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed speaking to him and learning about his methods and stuff as an actor. How was it collaborating with him so closely on this project?
Well, I've worked with Jonny before. Maybe I think in 2011 we did a film together called Lotus Eaters, which is like a little independent sort of thing. And so he was kind of, and I think Adrian, our director, knew Jonny as well. So it sort of made sense. And so we immediately asked him and he was really into it. It was funny because myself and Jonny on Lotus Eaters were both quite childlike almost. Like we're much younger, but we played very different. And this was like a kind of, it was like the sequel in terms of us both growing up and having much more powerful characters in this, which was very enjoyable for us to bounce back and forth and sort of ping pong that relationship. And that's what's also very interesting about Cordelia and Frank, is I think they are two people who are very similar and dealing with the same anxieties and all that sort of thing, and power play. So that was great, yeah.
And I think with the nature of this character, I guess it was quite, you had to go to quite sort of dark, sort of intense places in your mind. Was it quite a tiring shoot for you? And just emotionally, but when it was all kind of over, was there a sort of slight sense of relief that you were able to put this character back into one side?
Somewhat, yes. But I do think, I mean, in terms of things that I've done, Adrian's very nurturing to his actors. I mean, I think any actor would, I'd seem to comment the same way when they hear the name Adrian Shergold. He's a very nurturing actor's director. And because he and I had developed this together for a couple of years, I felt quite safe in the environment doing that. And there was, so I felt very much like I knew what I was doing rather than into kind of, a vast landscape.
Yeah, because I mean, in the film, it felt like it's so rich in subtext. It feels like there's a lot of this film is what's not said. And I was just wondering about how that was when, in terms of putting stuff onto page, and if it felt like most of the magic came on set, and even in the editing suite almost, because I guess with these characters, it's not necessarily what's put onto the page. It's so much of the unspoken, which really makes this film so rich.
Yeah, I mean, because we had this extraordinary set build in Twickenham Studios, we really were allowed the arena to play and spend time with these kind of quiet moments. And that's actually when the more dangerous things happened, I suppose. I would have, it's a joy to bring it to as dark an arena as you can. And we did take it to, slightly more blackened husks of our mind that didn't make the cut, unfortunately. But it's that also that decision of whether you make it like, whether it's a thriller or if it's much more in the genre arena. And I think the end result is it plays out quite into a kind of psychological thriller, which is quite nice, because then you know, yeah, it's much more kind of a linear kind of thriller type thing. Yeah, just repeating myself.
Yeah, but it was interesting that because my wife woke up, because obviously I watched this so early in the morning, when she'd woken up, and she sort of walked in and said, "Oh, well, did you watch that?" And she asked me to kind of describe it on quite simplistic terms. I wasn't really able to put it into a box, which I guess is a good thing. But how is that as a, because I know obviously this industry, despite films, I'm not one of those people that thinks every film needs a label or needs to fulfill some kind of genre expectations. But in terms of getting films greenlit and getting them off the ground, sometimes people do want to hear it being described as a thriller or a, you know, I just wondered about how, well, has it been a challenge selling this movie in some regards, just purely off the back of the fact that it feels quite unique in its tone?
It is, yeah, it is quite unique in its tone, but I think, you know, a lot of great cinematic pieces have been such in that way. I mean, especially, you know, there's been so much fantastic material that's been made, that's been co-productions, you know, multilingual, and I think that's, it's the kind of cinema that I've always loved, but I do think there's a growing audience for it. Things don't have to be, you know, divided into certain subtitles or, you know, genre kind of categories. There is much of a kind of cross-pollination, much more now.
Looking across your career, I've always been sort of fascinated by some of the roles you've played, and a lot of them seem to be such a variety of different characters, sort of battling so many different of their own inner demons and stuff. I was just wondering about what you think, as an actor, what sort of that outlook that gives you on humanity and stuff, because I guess you've had to wear so many different masks and play so many different characters at such extreme versions of kind of humanity. If you think it's given you quite a good understanding of the human psyche.
No. My shortest answer. No, it's baffling. No, I mean, what I have learned is I used to always try and deeply understand, but all that really matters is that I don't know, I think just any level, those human beings are so complicated, but also quite connected and, you know, simplistic in a way. And we all need very simple things to survive. And when it comes to telling a story, all that really matters is what we experience with the character from as soon as the film begins to the end, you know, and beyond that. And as long as we care about the individual enough to go on that journey with them. Yeah, but I have played quite a variety of unique individuals. What was really interesting and what I liked about Cordelia was that she sort of presents initially as a victim, but I really think she isn't. I think she's incredibly strong and powerful. And that's what's really interesting about her and her change. And actually from the beginning, we were presented with a quite delicate, sort of flighty young woman who has the essence of a child almost. And what I tried to do with that is that's her ammunition against the world. It's almost like a tool. And I think that's something I see in people quite often. You know, it's like it's a form of manipulation, and that's the kind of classic role that women have been playing in cinema for years. But what's very interesting in this film is that she sheds that sort of female cliche, which is being fey and light and cute and whatever. And I think she becomes much more true and honest and interesting when she sheds the classic feminine exterior.
You mentioned obviously you've made movies in Europe. I was wondering what you learned from your time making films in Europe and what that you took back home with you.
I think there was just a much more a wider. Well, I found across the board. Well, it's always because at the moment I'm about to start my own feature, and what I've always found very interesting is the relevance and importance of collaboration across in every department of the film. I think the film is not just the director and the actors. I think every integral department, every department is very integral, from the, you know, the sparks and the gaffer to the lighting to the design to the DP, obviously, costume. Every HOD is a part of making this story, and that's something I really saw play out in the films I made, and you know, that were co-productions in Europe. That really, was very obvious and everyone was on that page. And that's something that's very important to me as a filmmaker. Yeah,
it's very exciting that you're directing soon. But I was wondering about, because I think I first read about that maybe back in February sort of time, and I'm just wondering about how it's been impacted, this directorial debut for you by the kind of lockdown and by COVID, and have you begun? Has it started shooting yet?
No, we start in 3 weeks on October 12th. When this all began, I was due to shoot in June, and it's with Screen Ireland, and so it was obvious that we weren't going to shoot then. It's been a battle, but I think I had to do everything like COVID pass and reduce the script, but it was always quite contained. It's quite a small budget, and so that works in my favor and against me, because everyone knows that it's insurance premiums have gone up and all those things. But I really like a challenge. I like a challenge as an actor. I like a challenge as a director. I like constraints. I've always felt that people work better when they have to be resourceful. I find that very, I think the greatest art comes from limited resources. And you have to, you see all the time the waste of money. And when things are too large in scale, it's almost like there's laziness that comes with that. Or, I've always believed the greatest art comes from.
I saw the your really lovely Empire feature where you chose kind of 10 movies that you found quite magical recently. And it just struck me just how much of an eclectic taste and broad taste you have in films. I just wondered when that kind of passion for cinema started for you. Has it been something that has almost been quite self-taught, or was it from your parents, or how did you get into movies?
No, I would say, and sometimes I used to be sort of embarrassed about this. I suppose it's like people who are really into music, like there's some, this term anorak, like people who can recite films like that. I didn't grow up with cinema at all. I grew up in Switzerland, and I didn't have access to anything. I read a lot, but I think I just had I think the few bits and pieces of film I saw, we had Canal Plus, and there's really great French films that are always shown on Canal Plus. So that was like the first influence, just things that would pop up, like blue is the warmest color and all these things. No, not Three Colors Red, all these cinema like that. Blue is the warmest. And then I suppose I started becoming really interested in film maybe around 12 or 13. And there was a lot of American influence that came in. But it has been always very eclectic. Neither of my films are my parents are in the arts, and yeah.
I was going to end on. I read before that you've referred to yourself as being unconventional. You said not conventional, so I've changed that to unconventional. It's the same thing. But you've referred to yourself as being not conventional. I'm just wondering about being an unconventional kind of actor in this industry, and if you think it's been quite beneficial to you in your career, and at times, ever would you say been a hindrance?
Well, I suppose I think I think I've been very lucky to have worked with some very interesting people. I do think that people connect with like types. So it's kind of like it's just an immediate dialogue or an understanding you have when you come across someone from like the same sort of unconventional camp as yourself. So I think the work I've done has just sort of been organic, and I've been the obvious choice for it. Like when a couple of years ago when people started talking about the Me Too movement and all that, and there should be more we should give women directors more of an opportunity and a platform. I thought about my career to date, and I've worked with more women than men, a lot more female directors, and I wondered why that was. And I had to just think about it, and I think it's just I naturally appeal to a more feminist type director, and they see in me something that appeals to them, and then vice versa. In terms of, you know, we also work in an industry that it's a business. It's, you know, it's commerce driven, and I think there's, you know, you can separate the two.
Yeah, well, I love your roles and your career to date. So I think being unconventional is a lot more exciting than being conventional.
I'm trying to tread very carefully with my answer.
Sorry, I realised I didn't mean any effect. When I said hindrance, what I probably meant was more like any challenges that come with playing, not going by the kind of more conventional rule book, I suppose.
But you know, it's funny. I was having to do something earlier this morning, and the fact is, I really, really do love huge action films, and you know, there's some very I mean, I wouldn't say, but I have quite commercial tastes as well. It's not like I'm a purist art house cinema aficionado, and I've always wanted to kind of run around the desert on a camel with a machine gun. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Sure, there's a
I mean, I'm sure someone's done it, or someone will do it now. Yeah, I think I think, to be honest with you, with films like that they look, because obviously like they sort of commercial stuff like that, but there's incredible. I've been on sets for films like that. There's incredible artistry as well, isn't it, that goes into those into those movies. But thank you so much for your time today, and best of luck with your shoot that begins in a few weeks' time. I hope it goes well, and there's no more new challenges that come your way, and that fingers crossed. Brilliant. Well, thanks so much, Antonia. Much appreciated.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey You